G'day, legends. Happy Easter Monday and welcome to the Pot Noodle by Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight are Shane and Johnny. How you doing, Shane?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jared. Happy Easter to you and the family and to everyone out there tuning in. It was a good opportunity for me and my partner to get away for the last couple of days. We've been, as I was telling you boys off air, we've been hanging out in Yarra Glen, Healesville, so in the east part of the state of Victoria. We're actually out there for a wedding, so quick shout out to Jerry and Jimmy on tying the knot. But yeah, really good place to get away and just chill out for a few days and back now and ready to chat all things hoops.
Congrats to the happy couple. And yeah, up in a bit of a hoity-toity area. So yeah, nice area up there. Had to throw that in. How you doing, Johnny? You're on mute, John.
What a start. What an absolute start that was.
How are you, Johnny? No,
I'm
you're not
good.
muted.
I'm doing good. Yeah, we also had a bit of a traveling Easter as well. We went up to Tambourine Mountain for breakfast and then all the way into New South Wales to Murwillumbah for lunch and dinner. So lots of driving, but it was good. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Tambourine Mountain sort of area, brilliant part of the country. Really nice. So,
really good distilleries up there as well. A lot of like gin and beer and wine. It's all kind of kicking off there.
there you go. So hope everyone tuned in had a good one. You boys both sound like you did, and yeah, well, obviously I think yesterday was decent because of a 3-0 result, but we'll get to that a little bit later on the pod. So just before we start off, if you're tuning in and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Celtic Down Under YouTube channel or the podcast on your podcast app. It's available pretty much everywhere. If you're on Instagram and Facebook, you can find it, and Twitter, so you can find us. Search for Celtic Down Under or at Celtic Down on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us on there. Just trying to grow the podcast and keep it charting in an upwards direction, which it is. So that's good. Also, check out CelticDownUnder.com. On there, you can find Celtic Down Under hoodies, t-shirts, and if you want one of the flags, send me an email at admin@CelticDownUnder.com, and we can arrange one of them as well for you. So now all the plugins out of the way, we're going to start off with so last Thursday, I'm going to play between the two shows. So our Thursday session podcast, one of the topics there was we're talking about Brendan Rodgers SFA hearing. And the general consensus, we all thought he'd get the 2 games because that would be the minimum, even though what he said was right. So for me, waking up the next morning and seeing that he got 1 game with 1 game suspended, I think that's what it was, wasn't it? It's a pretty bloody good situation all around. So I just want to get your thoughts, Shane and Johnny, both of you, on the whole situation, because I said my piece on Thursday, but I want to get your thoughts. We'll start with you, Shane, on the whole situation, how it played out, and then how you think John Kennedy did managing the team yesterday.
Well, like yourself, I think when the SFA got involved and they scheduled the hearing and we all sort of looked at the fixtures to come and what was to happen, we all kind of feared the worst and thought, well, he's probably not going to be in the dugout for a couple of games, including at Ibrox. So similar to yourself, when I got the news on Friday, I think it was, when they said, look, it's 2 game but 1 suspended, so he'll miss Livy but be back in the dugout for Ibrox. I thought that was a pretty good result in the end. I think that definitely could have been a lot different. Look, I think we've covered it off previously in terms of the comments that were made. I know at the time I was pretty hard on him for naming the officials. I didn't like that. That was the only part I didn't really like. I thought he was well within his rights to critique some of the pretty awful decisions that were made on the day. Could he have chosen his words better? Sure, but it needed to be said. And I think in the end, I still think the actual punishments he received, I think any time you're not in the dugout, it's still a pretty severe punishment. And he's obviously got that suspended sentence hanging over him for the rest of the season, at least. So obviously, he can't really step out of line anymore. So I still think it's a punishment nonetheless. But yeah, I think I think in the end, I'm okay with what happened. In terms of your question about John Kennedy and how he went, look, I thought he went really well. I know we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the game later, but we know Livy's not the easiest place to go. That pitch is a disaster, and it was exactly that way on the weekend. So it's tough for someone to kind of step in and take control of the team. in Rodgers' absence, but I thought Kennedy did a very good job. And he's always struck me as someone that, that 2021 season aside, which was tough for all parties, he's always struck me as someone that you can hand the baton to and he'll step up and give it his best. And I think that showed on the weekend. I thought he did a really good job of managing the team.
And Johnny, your turn for all that stuff.
Yeah. I find the punishment a little bit ridiculous, if I'm being honest. In the sense that it's not just Brendan Rodgers. I find the ruling a bit ridiculous in general. I think it almost hampers complete free thought. And what we actually needed is critique is important in all aspects of football, right? Is seeing where the deficiencies are and then to see if we can improve and getting multiple opinions from that. Everyone's going to have biases. Literally everyone is going to have a bias, right? But within the bias, there's some truth to it. People always have some truth. So I find the general ruling of if you say too much or you name particular officials, you're going to get a punishment. I find that a bit mad, to be honest. I would have to understand the rules better to see if like the reason why he got punished was for a specific XYZ reason, maybe like naming official, something like that. But I think everybody should have the right to critique, especially Scottish football and especially the refereeing, because how many Brendan Rodgers was talking about how bad it was last time, right? The last time he was the manager, he was talking about how bad the refereeing was and how they need to do all those improvements. So we need the consistent critique. What I will also say though is I found the punishment interesting. I found it very interesting that it was a one match ban, 1 match suspension. To me, that kind of seems like the SFA were like, it didn't really do anything bad, but the bare minimum is this. So we're going to kind of try and find a compromise somewhere in the middle. That's how I'm reading that, because it's very, very interesting that like the minimum is normally 2 match ban. And he gets 1, like that's coming. Like surely there's a little bit of somebody's like, yeah, all right, he probably shouldn't get punished because it's not that bad and it's a bit of a ridiculous rule. So we'll try and find some way of still doing it. That might be a little bit of like green tinted specs, but I found that very an interesting situation.
Yeah, I agree with you, John, on that.
Yeah, it's a hard one because the SFA is effectively run by the clubs, right? It's all the clubs will come together and it's a committee and it's all like the consensus decision. So which is awful because it means that things never get changed, or these changes very, very difficult. So maybe that's something to look at another time. But yeah, I feel like somebody has gone. We're supposed to ban them for. We're supposed to ban managers for saying certain things for 2 matches. It's a bit ridiculous, so we're going to try and twist it some way and get it so that he doesn't get as severely punished. So that I kind of feel like we've been done a little bit of a favor in that, like we'll give him the ban for the game that doesn't matter, but we really need Brendan Rodgers on the stage for the Glasgow derby, so we'll get him. We'll make sure that he's on that. That's kind of like how I'm interpreting that, but anyway, maybe that's for a wider discussion. The John Kennedy stuff, I agree with Shane. I thought he did phenomenal. I think John Kennedy's one of those assistant managers that we're all kind of expecting him to have moved on by now to go and actually just manage a first team, and he hasn't. So I think he kind of runs a first team like you would expect, efficiently. Yeah, so I didn't think he did bad at all.
Yeah, I think John Kennedy's more the first team coach, like the assistant manager sort of thing, who would probably run the training, and Brendan would be standing back more like off to the side, more standing back, similar to the way it used to be like Fergie at Man United used to stand back and let all his assistants do all the work sort of thing. So I think it would kind of be that sort of scenario. But if the internet lags or anything on this pod, I'm just letting you know, I've got a massive thunderstorm going on here at the moment. It's absolutely pissing down. So yeah, just pre-warning everyone tuning in just in case. But yeah, it should be all right. But yeah, just with what you're saying, John, it was like I think it's rule 72 where you can't mention incompetence about the officials. And when he mentioned the word incompetence, he's going to be found guilty regardless. The fact is that then the head of the refereeing moves on or is told to leave. So for me, looking at it, it should have been a 2-game ban. But then, and as I said, if we're going into Ibrox with no away support and without our manager, and then we were to go there and win, watch the explosion happen over at Ibrox. We go in there with our manager and we beat them. Now the explosion is all going to be directed, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. It's going to be a pretty toxic environment towards Rodgers because he should still be suspended because the mutants over there with like very low IQs don't understand what's happened here. But at the end of the day, I just look at it and go, I think the SFA kind of shut it at the end of the day and sitting there going, yeah, Celtic have lawyered up. If we don't just give them something here, because what they're saying is correct, they're gonna go root and stem, and they're just gonna like go nuclear on the whole SFA, and then all bets are off. But back to the actual referees, for me, that's the bigger issue above all else, because the performance and where he said they're incompetent, and then we'll touch on referees again in our game and a few other things later on the pod. But what he said was proven to be right again over the weekend. And there's 2 teams that are going for direct Champions League level play, like Champions League spot next year, which will earn them £60 million. If you're the club playing out of Ibrox and you get £60 million, suddenly your financial position's better. You actually will be able to pay off your loans and all this sort of stuff and get out of trouble. For us, we win that $60 million. That's just stepping on their throat when they're down already. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot at stake here, not just on the pitch. And if the referees can't get it right, then let's get international people, because I'm over it.
I still think it's a bit mad. This is the bit where I can see there is criticism about Scottish football, right? I still think it's a bit mad. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're a top 10 European league, Scottish football.
Number
right?
10.
There you are, right? So we're currently 10th. Literally the cream of the crop, right? And our refs aren't even full time. They have to ref twice a week or train and all that, and then they go to their 9 to 5 where they sit in board meetings and stuff and talk about, I don't know, how's Janine doing over coffee. That's bizarre. That's absolutely mental. And then they're back on at the weekend with potentially 50,000 people screaming at them. It's just not on. And I can see how people look at us and be like, that's mental. We're not like the Norwegian league or the Icelandic league. That it's mental. Icelandic league's a bit far, but no, we're not.
Refs could do better. Danish league. I mean, honestly, we play in this game at Ibrox on Sunday. If we had an all Norwegian team, the guys who would do, Bodo Glimt versus Rosenborg, are 2 big clubs. If you had those guys come in, what would happen? I'd be happy with that. Robert's coming through with the comment here to you, Johnny, saying June is fine. And she says,
yeah. I don't even know what Janine lads came to my head.
Back to that though, we're talking about it on Thursday on the pod last week, and you got Douglas Ross up in the Highlands somewhere, the leader of the Tory party, running the sideline on a weekend. Yet all he does all week is, sits in meetings and stuff like that. Yeah, he can't be right. But anyway, go on.
I was just going to say it was a criticism. The point was made by Brendan Rodgers years ago. Is like that needs to be the start. Is turning refs full time. That does need to be the start. And I'm not going to say that that's going to fix everything, because it certainly won't. But God, it's got to be a beginning of something.
It's a starting point. So I'll bring up some comments and then we'll crack on to the game. So, William O'Toole, how you good eggs at Easter? Love it. Andrew Galea, how good are Easter holidays? They're right up there, mate, in my opinion. Hail, Mrs. Hill. James McGackie, good evening, boys. Bring on the Rangers. Yep, looking forward to it, even though I don't really get nervous. I just get more like agitated. Oliver Gibson. Martindale looked like someone had pissed in his cocaine. William O'Toole was Scottish match officials. Do you think they watched the Axom special with Alan Morrison and trolled him with not awarding the pen? We'll discuss that later on. But yeah, I don't think they watched it, to be honest with you, because it's there's too many numbers for them to be able to understand because they can't count past their lodge number. Andrew Galea was the one game ban was all show business, inconsequential to the Livingston game, back in business for the derby. Exactly. James McCackey is saying the VAR decision yesterday proved the manager was right, total incompetence or downright cheating. Definitely. We'll talk about that shortly. Patrick saying that was Rodgers on the megaphone yesterday. Gaddafi says it all. Refs dirty, cheating. Yep, you get the rest. Jared, don't worry, we won't let you down, mate. I'm here for the Kun section of the pod. And then Patrick was saying the suspended one-match ban is most laughable thing about it. It's only because it's at Ibrox and they can't guarantee Rodgers' safety that it became a suspended one game. Yeah, I would agree. If they can't let commentators come in because of who they formerly played for, are they really going to be able to protect Rodgers in the crowd?
Mm.
And then talking about Kennedy, Robert Gibson saying Rodgers had his mate next to him relaying instructions to the sideline. He may as well have been in the dugout.
Yeah, that's common though, isn't it? That's just...
Yep. And then Patrick followed that up with saying 2 game stands if it's anywhere but Ibrox. So, yeah, it's a bit of a doozy, really. So, yeah. We'll crack on to the game now. So it's got to bear with me one moment while I change the screen I had because I just accidentally closed it down as per usual. So Celtic 3, Livingston 0. I'm going to start off on a bit of a different thing. Normally I go to the starting lineup, but name the episode Plastic Paradise because, in my opinion, we know Livingston are skint and they're trying to raise money. But the fact is that they let Celtic fans have 3 stands at the game and we turned their stadium into a plastic paradise, as I'm calling it. So, and then we had tifos pre-game and at halftime. Like, I haven't seen anything that ridiculous on that front in a long time. It's just pure trying to get bums on seats and get money. That's the only way I can look at it. Yeah, just want to get your thoughts on that, Shane. What do you think when you saw the pre-game tifos and the crowd singing and all that sort of stuff? What were you thinking?
It's rare. They're very accommodating to away fans, but particularly to us on this occasion. I find it always very unusual going there and having 3 of the 4 stands as our supporters, effectively coming what you'd call, as you titled the pod, Plastic Paradise, a mini paradise, if you want to go down that path. But with the tifos, that's very interesting. That's extremely accommodating for a set of away supporters, particularly utilising most of the stands involved. So, yeah, I was quite surprised. It looked great, and shout out to all involved who put that together. That looked fantastic. So, Green Brigade and to everyone who was part of making that happen, it looked awesome. So, shout out there. But in terms of Livy actually allowing that to happen, yeah, I was very surprised. I don't think I've seen other clubs get away with it to that degree at the Spaghetti Head yet. So I'm not sure if this is setting a precedence or something like that. It'll be interesting to see what happens when other clubs who have big traveling away fans go there next and see what they're allowed to do.
It just seemed odd to me, though, for one simple fact before I jump to you, John, to get your thoughts on it. The reason it seemed odd is that it seemed like our guys, our active support and our fans there got away with more than they would get away with at Celtic Park in terms of setting things up and doing things. And there was a hell of a lot less security when you look at the wide shots of the stadium in the bays. There wasn't 2 or 3 security at every aisle. There was like 2 here, 4 aisles, there's another 2, another 4 or 5 aisles, there's another 2 or 3. So other than when the tifos were being taken down and it was like all men, all hands on deck, it seemed like it was a lot more hands off. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if someone watching was there and they could put in the comments what it was actually like. But that's what it seemed like to me. But, Johnny, what do you reckon about that?
Well, I mean, on that, Jared, it's finances, obviously. I mean, they obviously can't afford the same level of stewards as Celtic can. It's just down to numbers, really, isn't it? Again, you're absolutely right. It's bizarre. It's a quirk of Scottish football, but I guess that's what you got to do if you're a team that every pound matters, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what Livingston's turnover is, but probably not more than 10 million, right? So their profits and stuff are dead small, and it's just a struggle to keep But and if you can guarantee 3 times a year that you're going to fill your stadium out, Livingston's not filling out their stadium like what happened, or maybe 6 times a year, because if they do the same with Rangers, I don't know. Yeah, it's just extra. It's just a huge boost to their revenue. So very, very strange quirk that Livingston clearly don't have an ego, which is maybe some other teams need to take note. But if you were to go, down the M1 or whatever it is, and you go to like Hamilton and Motherwell, they're not hardly as close they are as to one of the biggest cities. They're not filling up their stadiums week in, week out. It's just a tough one, right? Do you turn it into somebody else's second stadium, or do you go, well, if we even want a team, if we still want to continue to be the business that we are, we actually just need to suck it up and just sell out as many seats as we can. It's a guaranteed sellout. So,
well, I think on your point, Johnny, like just further to in terms of the crowd volume, the difference between when they play, say, us or Rangers, or where they play Motherwell is stark by comparison. Like they got about 8,500, against us on the weekend. Now, if you go back to when they played Motherwell a few weeks ago, I think they didn't even get 1,200. So that's almost 7,000 more people through the gate. That's not to be sneezed at for a club their size. So you're right. The fact that they don't have an ego is important here, because this flow is actually helping them. And we're not talking just about the crowd, but we're talking about obviously the portions of that crowd who would no doubt, buy food and drink and so forth on the day there. It all adds up. It's an important revenue stream for them.
Well, on that, like Robert Gibson's saying here, Livingston is smart and take the cash, unlike other clubs who love being petulant. And there was an interview a couple of seasons ago from David Martindale when they weren't as skint as they are now, and he was saying getting the stadium full when us and Rangers come to town is massive for them, because he goes, if we sold a ticket at £25 a ticket, and as you're saying, Shane, 7,000 extra bums on seats for those games, that's 175,000 extra money they're making, and you times that by 3 for 3 games or something, there's extra 500,000. Now, their average wage for the calendar year works out like their top performers are all earning around about $2,000 to $3,000 a week. So realistically, you work that out, you're probably looking at that's 5 top performers for them just off those 3 games. And then if they did the same for Rangers, there's another 3. So, yeah, it's huge for them. So, yeah, it was a bit of an interesting one, but Andrew Galea made a comment here saying, one for the A-League fans, Livingston did the right thing. It's like Western United hosting Melbourne Victory. Shane would like that.
Yep.
And the other thing here was where I was saying the security was hands off, and he goes, and there was no crowd trouble. Exactly. So that's the funny thing. When the cops are going heavy-handed and security are heavy-handed, you tend to have issues. So it's just a bit of an interesting one. But, yeah, so we'll actually get to the game now. So Celtic 3, Livingston 0. Was a good fun looking at the starting lineup. It was like, who's going to play? Because on Thursday, we were unsure if Scales was fit. We were unsure if Hatate, I said he'd come off the bench, probably get 30, 40 minutes into his legs. Didn't expect him to start. So the fact when we saw the starting lineup with Joe Hart in goals, Greg Taylor, Liam Scales, Carter Vickers, Alistair Johnson as your backline, Awada as defensive midfielder, Hatate and O'Reilly together, and then Kyogo up top with Kun and Maeda either side of him, I'm looking at that going, that's pretty much on paper. I would say Scales and Naroski is one thing, and then the other thing in the midfield is you're going to rotate Kelmack into there as well, and Bernardo, and that's where your battles for your strongest team possible. So we'll talk on that a little bit later on. But yeah, I just thought it was it's great to see Hatate return, and then CCV and Scales. We're going to talk about when we get to the player focus. We'll talk about Hatate a bit more, and I'm going to talk about O'Reilly and Kun in particular. 3 I want to mention. So, but Shane, I want to get your general thoughts on the first half.
Yeah, it was an interesting first half. I echo your comments with regards to the starting lineup, and particularly Hatate coming in and not off the bench. I was also surprised, but I was really excited by the midfield 3, or the prospect of a midfield 3 of Hatate, O'Reilly, and Awata all working together. I really want to see how that all kind of gelled. Yeah, it was an interesting first half. I thought it was still a pretty decent first half, even though we didn't score. I thought we showed a lot of control. I thought our movement of the ball was pretty good. I didn't think we were that static. I thought we were getting the ball into the good areas, particularly our wide players. Unfortunately, I think our final ball was lacking a fair bit in that first half. I think we're able to get into decent spots, but then that final ball to play someone in just wasn't there, or we were whipping across and no one was there, or in the case of Maeda, his first touch was all over the shop. So there were definitely a couple of things here and there that were problematic in the final third, but I thought our build-up play and getting to the final third, in particularly our wide players and our midfield, was actually quite good. I thought we looked really solid. And the only thing that was lacking from that first half was a goal to go in at halftime 1-0 up. And to be honest with you, and I'm no doubt we'll get into it, we should have at least had the opportunity from the spot to go 1-0 up. And that would have been a good reflection on a pretty solid first half if we'd gone into the sheds at 1-0.
And Johnny, what's your take on the first half?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that I watched the same first half and I had a very different impression than Shane. And I guess it just goes to show when we watch Celtic and we tend to focus on different things. I remember watching the first half and just getting progressively more annoyed and frustrated. I thought the things that you mentioned, Shane, was exactly why I was getting annoyed. Which was we would build up, we'd get into the final third, and it was just chaotic nonsense. It was big crosses to nobodies, and it was passes to no ones, and it was running into places that you didn't need to run into, and it just completely and utterly wound me up. And I think that was the energy that I was feeling watching the first half. Was I feel like the players were getting frustrated by Livingston's tactics, and they were also so desperate for the goal. They were just like snatching at it and they were just trying to force something to happen, which maybe sometimes you need to do. But that was the energy that I was getting. I was getting very, very worked up with the first half. And you're absolutely right. What we needed was a goal, and eventually that happened and it calmed everything down. And then we saw the Celtic that we're used to seeing. Strangely, the point that I thought that Celtic shifted into what I wanted to see was when Kyogo I can't remember what it was, like 44 minutes or something, but Kyogo got that shot off, being the only shot on target, I believe, of the first half. And I thought that was genuinely a moment that it kind of everything sort of changed from that point, because we got the shot off and then all of a sudden it started to work from there. And I absolutely agree. How on earth that wasn't a penalty is complete and utter madness. Not only was it completely crazy that it wasn't a penalty, I could accept incompetence on the field, but to have a system in place where they get to forensically analyze everything and for it to not be pulled back and said go to the screen and have a look. How many times are we going to say that this stuff is suspicious? But that was awfully suspicious. That is clear as day. A Celtic manager might call it incompetent, but they'd probably get a match ban. But
I mean, John Kennedy could have done it, and then he would have got banned, but not Rodgers, right? So
just switch them. So I think I was just getting very, very frustrated with the wastefulness of Celtic in the first half. I felt that a bit from the crowd, but I think when we got that shot off, that chance from Kyogo where he did very, very well. Maybe on another day it would have been a goal, but I think the first half their keeper had a blind eye. It was absolutely fantastic. So, and until they started really losing, the Livy keeper had a great game. But yeah, that was that. My first half was frustration. Honestly, truly, it got to the second half and it was like, I don't know, I was 10 o'clock. It's a long day for me. I was like, I'm fucking done. We're not winning this game. I'm going to turn the game off and go to bed. I can't be arsed with this. I was so close to doing that, but yeah, I'm glad I persevered.
Well, it's funny because I'm looking at that goal and Shane saw it one way, you saw it another way, John, and I've got another option on how I saw it. And the thing for me that frustrated me is, there was the thing of, no shots on target. Their goalkeeper and their striker, Tede Gengi, those two, if you put them into our team, I think they could do damage. that's saying something. I'm not saying to sign them, but I'm saying like if they had better service and better players around them, I think they could launch to a top level or go to a better level.
Yengi's a player for sure.
Yengi is definitely a player. However, what I found frustrating was the amount of times it was we get foul, play on, and then we make a pass, and it got pulled back one time in the second half because the pass got misplaced. The amount of times the refs called play on, we've made a pass, and then it didn't get to anyone because our players stopped expecting a whistle or the guy was offside or whatever, so it wasn't an advantage. That threw our rhythm off. So I was getting frustrated more at that because then they were getting the contact. They'd step in front of us and then just stop, and we'd run into them and they'd fall or whatever, and they'd get the call. So it was really we were getting all the advantage calls, they were getting all the whistles. So in the first half, I found it was just an awkward game. It didn't flow right the way we wanted it to compared to the way they want it. They want to stop start. We didn't. So I found that's what I found frustrating. And then the other thing was the amount of times where we go wide, we get around behind their centre backs and we look for a cross and there's no one there. The guys to cross it to, the guys are pulled up short to the penalty spot or the top of the box. And then there's other times where the guy cuts in from the wing to come to the middle. That's where you want someone to dive to the back post so you can either take a shot or slide the ball across. And that's where the guys are proper next to you as well. So it just seemed really disjointed for that first 35, 40 minutes. But as you said, John, once that shot got on target, that was here you go, Robert. That was us turning a corner. But the penalty, absolute shambles. Here it is on the screen. How did he win the ball? Look at that.
He didn't.
He didn't touch the ball. He went straight through Kyogo's arsehole with his knee and stepped on his foot. He could have turned him into a ventriloquist dummy the way he had him sitting there on his knee. Like, it is clearly a penalty. And then you look at the one that was given at Ibrox the day before, and you're like, how do they get their 17th penalty this season for that? But then the Kyogo one doesn't get called. It is an absolute stitch up. It's the only way to say it. As you said, John, the referee could make a mistake. You could have someone standing in front of him on the field and doesn't see it. But you've got VAR there to have a look at it. And Alan Muir on VAR, you're incompetent. There, I said it. Suspend me for a week. I'll take a week off. Shane can host. Let's go.
I'll join you. It's incompetence. So now John can host.
It's incompetence.
There you go. All right, so the pod's not on next week.
No, they're not.
No, I agree, Jared. That's a foul anywhere else on the pitch. It's staggering. In real time, it looked a foul. You slow it down in slow-mo. He clearly doesn't reach the ball. He goes through the back of Kyogo's leg. The only thing I will say on the VAR or the VAR or whatever, and this is where it's starting to become more of a grey area for me. So from what I understand from the footage, VAR did have a look at it, but we still, and this comes with the lack of communications, we still don't really know if the VAR actually says, we want you to look at it, and the on-field ref says, no, I'm comfortable, which could have happened here, right? So the on-field ref has the ability to, well, that's the thing. This is a really good point. The on-field ref has the ability to turn around to VAR through the headset and say, no, I had a comfortable view of that. I'm satisfied I haven't missed anything. Now, he might go and check the footage and still remain with his original decision, but he has every right to look at that and say, I'm comfortable with that.
Kyogo's comfortable on his lap. It's almost like he's sitting on Santa's lap at Christmas time.
It's staggering. It's like I said, that's a clear as day penalty, and we should have had an opportunity from the spot to go into halftime 1-0 up, and it's incompetence. That you can't defend that decision.
I'm inclined sometimes I put my fucking tinfoil hat on, and I'm inclined to believe it isn't incompetence. If you gather my innuendo, I very much think it's sometimes
the fixes.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying. Look, the Italian league had their big scandal, and I just think it wouldn't surprise me if we had a huge scandal coming out. That's that. It's so suspicious. It's consistently suspicious. It just doesn't make sense. And what really frustrates me is that we have been saying this for a really long time, and I think the other side of Glasgow says, yeah, but we find it suspicious as well, and then and therefore everyone else goes, yeah, you're bad as each other. That's like that. It proper like shits me to tears when people go on like that. But just a proper impartial, independent investigation into the standards of Scottish refereeing, I think would really just help communicate to all of us maybe what we're missing, because we're not referees, we don't know the rules the same way they do. So.
But the reason we're so frustrated is we have a system in place now that at the heart of it is designed or has been designed and implemented to, quote unquote, catch the howler or correct the howler. That is a howler. That's a clear missed penalty. Now, if your system involved, it doesn't really matter at what point it breaks down, but if the system that you've got involved cannot capture and overturn that, you have to ask serious questions. There's no point in having a system in place that's going to look at that and go, regardless of who makes the final call, go, oh no, it's okay. That's exactly what it's there to overturn, and it's failed again. You just can't help but be completely frustrated by it. And, to your point earlier in the pod, John, you were talking about the fact that you want people to come out and be able to say their piece on referee decisions and to call things out. And that's exactly the kind of decision that does need to be called out. And someone needs to have a conversation about it and say, you know what, that's just wrong. And that should have been a pen and we should have been awarded one.
It's almost like the system is fabricated into such a way that cannot happen. So we can continue to have these dodgy decisions on the pitch, and then you can do nothing about it.
There's a fine line, though. I know we're going off into a little bit of a tangent, but there's a fine line between critiquing a decision and with the aim of making it better, and an all-on pile-on, right?
Yeah.
So
calling out cheating. That's the other one. Yeah.
That's where it has to be careful, right? You've got to be able to critique decisions. I don't like sporting codes or bodies that kind of prevent you from criticizing decisions, but at the same time, there has to be a fine line where you're not actually just encouraging a pile-on. And we've seen this happen, obviously, with things like Willie Collum and so forth. So, there has to be a balance. You can't go too hard, but you should be in a position where you can say, no, that was wrong, and we should have had a pen.
So basically what you're saying, guys, is that, if there's a riot and everyone else is rioting, you don't join in the riot. That's pretty much, you understand the logic on that? Because I'm just trying to come up with something that's not football related, because they'll go, oh, you guys are doing it, so we're not getting it. And everyone goes, you're as bad as each other. And it's a Glasgow thing, blah, blah, blah. But just because something doesn't go your way or you disagree with something for ABC reason doesn't mean you get to do it and just carry on. So I'm just going to bring up some comments here, but we've got Andrew saying, Yangi replacement for Ida. Wouldn't mind it. I'm going to go to something I wanted to bring up as well, which I kind of forgot to, but I loved how Chris Boyd was saying at halftime that it wasn't a penalty, even though everyone else said it was a clear penalty. Sutton and Snoddy gave it to him. So I want to say, suffering your jocks, Boyd, you flog. You absolutely have no knowledge of football. And the reason I'm saying that is you've got Patrick going, and then you've got a staunch dummy in the TV studio saying it's not a penalty. I don't know what game he was watching.
I mean, to be fair, it is
believe what he was saying.
No, he didn't. But it is quite entertaining when you have obviously extremely biased pundits. As much as the fact that we're still talking about it means that we also find it quite entertaining.
They really should have a panel, like when they do the next sort of TV rights, have Chris Boyd at one end and Tom Boyd at the other end.
Yeah. BT, when BE were the broadcasters, they made it extremely obvious when they would hand the Rangers pundit a blue mic and then they'd give Chris Sutton a green one. It's like, well, obviously, if you didn't know, I'm just making it. I think that's good. You should do that more often. But anyway,
just lean into it a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. That's the whole point. Robert, why Chris Boyd he's a renter mouth, isn't he? So
yeah. Robert was saying they had a look at it and decided Kyogo's still an anal virgin, so no penalty. Patrick was saying Rangers would get 2 penalties for that tackle.
Yeah.
And then Andrew saying the ball came off Kyogo's right foot. He kicked the back of his left foot as he rammed in his knee into his ass. Exactly. And then where we set up here, not incompetence, human error. Jared, tune in for Jared's comments on Thursday as we preview the derby. Was my gran had incompetence? I was always mopping up after her. That's what you get. Whoever has to deal with Chris Boyd in the commentary booth half time, there'd be some sort of stuff going on as well. But yeah, so we go in the second half, and because it was 0-0 at half time. So we go to the second half. So Johnny, I'll let you to give your thoughts on the second half.
Well, yeah, like I was saying, it was a big U-turn for me, the way that I felt about Celtic's performance. I think we were very fortunate with the first goal, but we were trying very, very hard to force that goal. And I think a bit of luck sometimes is all that you need. I think it ricocheted like twice or three times, but do we really care? It was we had like 3 Celtic attackers all trying to force the goal. It was going to happen in some form, right? So that was good. It was good that we were still being very tenacious. I thought the Bernardo goal was just a bit of beauty. I think Bernardo got fouled, O'Reilly got fouled, and still we managed to score that screamer. Like that was the type of Celtic that I wanted to see, and I haven't seen to that extent in a while. Just the quick passes and the taking a shot early, brilliant bit of goal. Yeah, and it just obviously continued. The only player that I wanted to mention was I thought Kelly looked really, really solid when he came on. I thought Kelly. I'm right in saying it's Kelly, the young lad. Yeah. I think that's the second time I've seen him play, and he seems very, very comfortable in the Celtic first team. So hopefully that is a Celtic youth that can continue that, because I know we've had a couple of youths that come in and then kind of fizzled. Welsh, for example, but hopefully we get to see more of him. Been impressed.
On the Kelly thing there, John, what I want to touch on is he's come in and he looks like physically prepared, like he's been in the gym and he's like an early developer and he's got that size about him. And then so you have him, you had Ben Doak when he came in, he looked big and ready to go as well. And then you compare that to guys like Rocco Vada, which his first cup last year he was pretty scrawny. This year he looks like he's been in the gym, but we've barely seen him. But then you go back a couple of seasons when we signed what was it, Lewis Morgan from St Mirren. He came in and how tiny did he look?
Yeah.
Even though he'd been playing first team football. And the only reason I remember him is because I saw him in some thing on Twitter the other day where it was pissing down rain and him and one of his teammates took their pre-game warm-up jackets off and put it on the kids like pre-game for the intro. So I know he's a dirty Hun, but yeah, fair play to him for doing that. But guys like that coming in and they're just not physically big enough. So you see Kelly come in. I looked at our bench going into the weekend's game, and I'm like, Ida, Yang, Bernardo, Kelly, Forrest. They're our 5 subs. All of them impact players. They can impact the game physically. They can impact the game, with their skill. And then you also got Nawrocki on the bench and the Bricky, Ralston, and Welsh. So you've got options and Bain. So we're starting to look like a proper football team with guys coming back. So yeah, I really did like Kelly, what I've seen of him so far. Let's just get him signed up on that 3-year deal or whatever he wants and then see more of him as the season progresses. Shane, what was your thoughts on the second half?
Yeah, I thought we sort of continued on from where we left in the first half, but I thought where we improved drastically was just our final ball, basically our delivery and work rate in the final third, and our picking of passes was a lot better. And I think it's no surprise that we prospered after that. I thought it was crucial for us to get an early goal. Going in 0 at halftime wasn't a good reflection of the game. So I thought if we could nab that early goal, that would help set us on our way. And irrespective of who gets the final touch on it, it's obviously an own goal. There's a couple of ricochets. This is the weekend for the ricochet. We'll talk about that later. But the shout out goes to Kun and, his work rate to absolutely. So he obviously wins the ball back from the Livy player, gets the ball. It's all down to him and puts a great ball into the box. And he makes that all happen through his hard work and his endeavour not to give up on a ball that a Livy player is going to effectively get on the end of and clear. So shout out to him. And I thought his work rate throughout the entire 90 or the portion of the 90 that he played. I know he got subbed off about the 70th minute mark, but I thought for the 70 minutes he was on the pitch, he worked really hard, and shout out to him for that. I still think they were still sitting pretty deep. They didn't really come out after the first goal. They were still happy to kind of just bide their time a little bit. The second goal was crucial, and that kind of, I think, at that point, pretty much set us on our way to all 3 points. I loved it. It's gonna sound a little bit strange because he's a right footer, but the way he sort of rode those 2 tackles and sort of loped towards the box and then pinged it in with his right foot, it just reminded me a little bit of our Wizard of Oz, Tommy Rogic, just the way he rode those 2 tackles and his movement in terms of the way he sort of loped across the pitch, played it into O'Reilly. Smart move from O'Reilly to play it back as well, and a lovely first time finish from Bernardo, who's still shown a bit for mine, and I like him coming off the bench. I like him joining that midfield, and particularly when O'Reilly's playing well. And then the third goal was, at that point, Livy started to come out a little bit. There was a bit more space, and the third goal kind of sealed the deal. It wasn't O'Reilly's best strike, let's be honest. He's literally passed that to the keeper. And I know he might have had a good game up until that point, but geez, he really kind of shit the bed there. Just literally all he had to do was parry it or even catch it, and he's just completely misjudged it. So the celebration from O'Reilly seemed a little bit of I'm a little bit shocked this has gone in, and then he kind of let it wash over him. But it capped off a fantastic game for Matt. Probably his best game for a very long time. He had an assist to go with that goal, and just overall in that midfield 3 of Awat and Hatate, he looked fantastic on what is a pretty difficult pitch to look fantastic on, let's be honest. So all things considered, I think the 3-0 result reflected the match, and I reflected our dominance in the match. Anytime you go there and come away with 3 points is good, but to actually keep a clean sheet and to walk away 3-0 winners, I think you can't help but be really bullish about that performance.
So I'm just going to jump in on a couple of things here. So for me, I just thought it was a lot better. Like what I said in the first half, those passes when we get advantage and they weren't sticking. In the second half, they were, and then we got into that rhythm and off we went. So that first goal, yeah, it was definitely going to happen. It was only a matter of time. It was when, not if. So it was a game just opened right up a little bit after that. Bernardo, yeah, he did okay as well, but I'm going to bring this up here. Patrick was saying Portugal under 21 captain Bernardo as well, which I wasn't aware of. Jared's got something for you, Shane. Kun is left-footed. He's a left-footed right winger.
Yeah, but I was the comment about the right foot, left foot was on Bernardo's goal, which reminded me of Rogic, who was obviously very famous left footer, but Bernardo hit it on his right. So I was saying that whole build-up just reminded me of Rogic picking the ball up deep, running towards goal, and then hitting it. But Bernardo, obviously being a right footer, that was the only difference. But everything about it reminded me of the Wizard of Oz.
Cool. Just wanted to clarify that. Andrew had this comment earlier on. Awada allows others to play with more freedom. And that's something that I thought, in particular, like O'Reilly has been struggling a bit recently with his form in the team. And I thought some people are saying it's like Awada, but for me, when we get into our player focus, I thought having Hatate back in there freed O'Reilly up to just play his game. I put it in one of the chats on me, and I can't remember if it was our one or if it was Axe on one. It was in one of those two, but I said, like, I've gone, I think O'Reilly is freed up because he's got Rio there. And it's like he doesn't have to worry about his positioning as much. Like if it's him and Bernardo and they're similar paced, you've got a dynamic midfielder that we've missed all season alongside of you, and it suddenly opens the game up a bit for him. So I just thought that was a big part of it. So, and then Craigie White was, we've missed Rio so much. And then Patrick saying, Hatate going to score a 25-yard screamer on Sunday now he's warmed up.
Hope so.
Andrew was saying, I wish O'Reilly would just put his foot through that when he shoots. Our keeper gifted us that goal about his one. Yeah. I think, as you were saying, Shane, it just seemed like, what? Did that actually go in? He seemed a little confused rather than celebrating straight away. But, yeah, and then as Andrew's saying here as well, our subs were vital under Ange. We're getting back to that situation. We got some game changers starting to be on the bench, which is a good thing. But so there was a few players that we wanted to touch on for player focused. So I'll start off with, so we've spoken about Kun. Jared has Kun on the brain. We know he's obsessed with him. Atade back in, we've spoken, as a massive in having him in the squad now. But for me, the player I wanted to touch on the most was Joe Hart. This is a summary of his game yesterday. 1 second. Sitting on the crossbar, reading the book, deck chair, having a coffee, having a cuppa, playing some Connect 4. He had to do absolute sweet FA. And yeah, I just had to bring that up just because I wanted to bring up the picture. Shane, you got any player focus that you want to get to?
I just want to mention, to my detriment, that I lost 2 games at Connect 4 on Saturday in 7 moves. So I'm embarrassed about myself. And so that was Joe. That was that reaction of who I was playing in Connect 4. That was their reaction when they literally had 4 in a row and won. Anyway, enough about me. No, I didn't really want to add to that other than we've obviously talked to Wax Lyrical about Hatate coming back. I'll just go a little bit further. I thought he was fantastic. And I agree that his inclusion with O'Reilly, just that midfield dynamic looked a lot better. And you could see very early on his willingness to bite off those passes, those diagonals, those long passes. They didn't all come off, but that willingness to actually say, I'm going to play that ball. And it just kept that Livy defense, which is normally pretty stodgy and pretty consistent and tight together. It just kept them on edge a little bit. There was one early play where he whips in this unexpected ball across to Kun, who gets on the end of it, and we don't get anything from it. But it just means their defense has to be a little bit more wary of balls coming in over the top. They can't necessarily... They might have to even sit even deeper and give that space to the midfield. I thought he was fantastic, and he was literally the one player I wanted to highlight. So, and he didn't look like he'd missed a beat. That was the thing. We didn't expect him to start, but he comes in, gets 65 minutes out of him in prep for the trip to Ibrox, and he didn't look like he was blowing a gasket or anything. So, first game since, I think, 31st of Jan or something like that. It's a fantastic thing to be able to include him into our starting 11 at this point of the season.
It seems like Rodgers has actually figured out the player he's got there, because you think back to the first game of the season, he started Turnbull over him. So you compare that to having him been out for so long this season, and as soon as he's fit and ready to go, you're straight in on a plastic pitch. So it's great. I'm happy as with that. Johnny, any players you want to focus on?
Well, we've kind of spoken the ones that I thought that had an especially great game, the Coons and Hatates and stuff. I thought CCV had a particularly good game as well. Was very, very solid at the back. Interesting that he got the captainship. It's normally, if it's not McGregor, I thought it was normally Hart. So interesting there, but maybe it goes down to a testament of he seems a very quiet and composed individual. But maybe he is quite a bit of a leader in the dressing room and stuff, and he has seniorship, right? He's been at some really Tottenham's a massive team, so he's been in and around it. So thought he had a good game, and I know he's getting strength to strength since he's only relatively recently back from injury as well. And I've already spoken it, but Kelly for me was just another bit of a. We were already winning well at that point, but I seem to remember. A chance at the back post. He probably should have buried the header, and he just skewed it slightly. But the fact that he's got a goal and he's in dangerous areas looking for more is a bit of a fantastic sign, to be honest. I really do think that is God. I really do. Touch wood, fingers crossed. But I feel like we've got maybe another James Forrest. Oh, who knows? Yeah.
On that, I thought Jamesy played well when he came on.
But
John, I thought you're about to break into some song before, because you've gone with Kuna and Hatate, and I thought you were going to start singing. Yeah, you said it. I was like, "There's a song for the words you can come up with," but the wording with Kuna and Hatate, and I was like, "Let's get ready to." I'm like, "Where's Timon and Pumbaa? Where are they?" Some nicknames for them. Who's Timon? Who's Pumbaa? Let us know in the comments.
Get that to the Green Brigade and make some sort of. That's quite good. I like that.
That was brilliant. So Okay.
Oh, wow.
Let's look how these golfers improved. I'll just leave it there. So
Yeah.
we're just going to touch on a couple of things like to wrap the pod up. So Shane, you wanted to mention the Glasgow Derby ticket allocations for next season. They've been set at 5% for the grounds for the away team. I had my say when I was on Axum on Friday. I think it's decent. It's a step in the right direction, but from us who watch it on TV, it makes a big difference when you've got the crowds there. But for me, I don't know if I actually want those scumbags in our stadium, but figure it out. But what's your thought?
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. I'm not too sure where it goes from here. I think this might be as far as it goes in terms of allowing fans in, at least for the next couple of seasons. But I think it is definitely a step in the right direction. I think the fixture is no doubt lacking with away fans. Can dislike having them in Paradise all you want. Just shout out in general to anybody who might think that way. But, from a viewership perspective and from actually watching the game, there is an extra edge, particularly having them in Paradise when we belt them 5 or 6-0. And likewise, it's always awesome going there and beating them or turning them over on their own pitch and having a good portion of our fans there to celebrate. So I think it does add something to what the fixture is, and there's no doubt it's become a little bit lacking without the away fans there. I think the 5% is an interesting number. So from recollection, this sort of brings us in line with sort of Champions League requirements, where I think it's 5% of the stadium's capacity or a certain number, depending on how big your stadium is. Yeah, that's right. And so that should see us have probably at Ibrox that little corner and then part of the Broomland stand again. I think that's what happens usually for Champions League games, and I expect similar to happen. So, look, I think we're moving in the right direction. As long as we actually see it happen and it takes place, and we can actually get fans in the stadium to that number, and there isn't sort of kind of a hissy fit in between, then like I said, I think we're moving towards the right direction. But let's see how we go from here.
Johnny?
Yeah, I very much agree with Shane's sentiments. To be honest, I think it probably should stay where it is for a while. I still feel it's all a bit of pettiness, to be honest. And I'll be very honest. I feel like it's petty on both sides at this point, to be honest. I think having the 8,000 that away fans that it used to be was just something different. It was why it was the best derby in the world, and I think we imploded that. I think we systematically cut away at what was our biggest asset in our league until it was nothing, until we've killed it, and now we've had to go back to something arbitrary and statistical, and it just feels a bit cold and a bit nothing, to be honest. There might have been an element of having 8,000 away fans is quite a large operation, not just with safety of fans at the stadiums, but the stuff that goes in to and from stadiums as well. It might just be something that both teams aren't particularly keen on going back to. Many Celtic fans know what it's like. You can't walk up certain streets, and there's crowds like crazy. Can't get there too early, all that sort of stuff. Maybe we just don't want to go back to that with the amount of police on the streets and stuff beforehand. I just think we've killed our biggest asset of our football league, to be honest. And yeah, all right, fine. 2,500, 3,000 fans. It'll bring something back, but it just won't be the same. I agree with Shane. I think it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable. I don't really ever seeing it go back to 8,000, to be honest. This is what it is now. That's it. It's a shame.
100%. So I was going to go to, there's two funny things I wanted to point out that I thought need to chat about before we quickly talk about the derby. So in the Hibs versus Huns game, Nectar Trianis tries to take a quick free kick, and the only problem was that when he blasted the ball, he thundered it into Joe Newell's face, sending the Hibs skipper to the ground. The ball then flew off his head and hit another Hibs player, Will Fish, in the face. Then ricochets off him back to Newell while he's on the ground and hits him in the jaw or the chest here. So in Australian sport, that's known as a falcon when someone gets hit in the head. So it was pretty much a triple falcon. Unbelievable. And the guy who did it was an Aussie. So the Falcons, Nectar Trianus, Australian player, ripping out the triple falcon in Scotland. Fantastic. Absolutely love it.
What a
And the
bloke!
reason
What
it's
a bloke!
Falcons, there was an NRL player back in the day, Mario Fennick. His nickname was the Falcon because he constantly got the ball in the face. So that's where the term Falcon. The amount of times he tried to charge down someone putting a kick in and he'd swear it straight in the face. So Mario the Falcon Fennick, it became a bit of the Australian lexicon. So there you go. Another funny one. This was going to be my final thought. Harry Kuehl went off in the game, tried to make some subs. They let the opposition. He went to bring on a second player. The opposition were allowed to make his subs, and then they restarted play, leaving him to team a man down because of an injury. Nagoya immediately took advantage and scored. And Harry Kuehl's turned to the fourth official. You're a cheat. You're a cheat. Hey, hey, hey. That is disgraceful. That is a disgrace. That is a disgrace. You're a cheat. So, Harry, you've taken Brendan. You can tell you've been under his learning tree. You've taken the incompetence and you've gone to cheating. I absolutely love it. I wanted Liam on the show to see how that would be taken in Japan, but yeah, wouldn't have gone down well. Let's say that. It's a good old Harry.
It's to be interesting to see what the football board over in Japan actually do. I'm sure that he'll get sanctioned for it in some regard, particularly using the C word. So yeah, he might be facing a stint on the sidelines. Maybe his interpreter is going to have to manage the team. I don't know.
Potentially. So now, last thing I want to do, boys, is Thursday's pod. The Thursday sesh is going to be us previewing the derby. So what I want to get you boys to do, because it's derby week, is I just want you to give your thoughts on how you think it's all going to play out. Like, I know there's a lot of time to go, but we could talk about Rodgers being on the sideline, how that's going to infuriate the Huns crowd if you want, or we've already mentioned that. We can discuss with players returning, like if you've got Calmac coming back in, it's going to be the strongest squad we've had against them this season. So how do you think our midfield will be next week if everyone's fit? Because realistically, you have a look, you've got Awada who shouldn't be dropped. Rio's just back in. You've got O'Reilly, Bernardo, and then Calmac. And then you've got Callie. Then you've got Home down there as well. So you've got plenty of options. So how do you think we will line up? I know it's early in the week, so there's a lot that can change, but give us a starting lineup and let us know how you think the midfield will play out. So I'll go to you first, Johnny.
I think it will be the exact same back four as the Livy game, back five. I don't see them changing that at all. It would be madness to give Scales and CCV the 90 minutes and then break up that partnership before arguably the biggest game for Celtic and maybe the Jazz as well. But I think that if it was any other player than McGregor, I would say that they would not be starting. It would not surprise me that if he was fit, that he goes straight in. Just even if he has an off game, he's still 7 out of 10 player. And the leadership is just, it's unquantifiable. So it wouldn't be surprised me if he's fit, he's going straight in. I think Maeda, Kuhn, and Kyogo start up front. It's a hard one for me to put my finger on. I'm nervous about the game. It is an away game. Normally a game that we kind of struggle with. I would say maybe that's a step too far, but it's a tough one. It's a tough place to go to, especially with no fans. I think anything but a win is not really going to go well for us, to be honest. We absolutely have to win the game. I just think it is going to be difficult to do, and I don't think my expectations are limited. And I think that's maybe a good place to go into for a derby game. But it's not to say that I don't think we have the ability. I think we are trending in the right way with our performances. I think if we play the way we played in the second half, it is entirely in Celtic's hands. It's the margins for mistake are almost non-existent. They're not. I'm not going to say that they're a fantastic team, because I don't think they're a fantastic team. However, they're a team that will absolutely punish you if you make silly mistakes. And we have silly mistakes in our team. That there is a possibility for that. I think having Hatate back, I think Kuhn getting stronger and stronger is a great sign. I think CCV being back is a great sign. I think Maeda has been a bit off it recently, but Kyogo's starting to get better and better. Maybe back to his old form. Signs are there. It might be a tight one. If you were to ask me, maybe 2-1 late Celtic goal sort of thing.
Shane?
I think in terms of a starting lineup, Johnny's pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think it's pretty much an unchanged lineup. The only question being whether you have Kalmak come in for Iwata or not. And I think if it was any other fixture, I'd probably stick with Iwata and leave Kalmak out and let him continue his recuperation. But this fixture requires a lot of leadership on the pitch and a lot of nous and knowledge, and that's what Kalmak has in abundance. And so I absolutely want him in the starting 11 when we go out on the pitch on Sunday at Ibrox. I also think further to that, we know he hasn't had maybe the best of seasons, but two of his better games, if not best games this season, have come against them, both at Ibrox in the first fixture earlier in the season and in the reverse at Paradise. So I absolutely want Kalmak in that midfield along with Hatate and O'Reilly. Everyone else is exactly the same. I don't share similar concerns that I've seen in the comments about Scales playing at centre-half purely because he's partnered with CCV. We've talked ad nauseum in the past about how CCV lifts his centre-half opponent to a greater level, and I think with him there with him that will be solid. I think the pressure's all on them. I'm going to say the pressure's all on them to get a result. I know mathematically they can, but I don't think they can win the league unless they actually beat us in a game. If they don't get a win against us in this fixture or the next fixture that's to come, they can't win the league. They don't have the bottle to win it. So all the pressure is on them this week to try and get that win at Ibrox in front of their fans, the no away fans, all the pressure on the SFA and Rodgers and all that. The narrative's already there. They're going to be up to their old tricks. You're going to see it all on show. But I think we've got what we need, and I think we're playing well enough at the moment to go there and get a result. And I think particularly with Hatate in that midfield, he's that X factor now that I think is going to be so crucial on Sunday. So I reckon we go there. I reckon we're going to do something unexpected and keep a clean sheet. And I reckon we walk away with the 2-0 win and cue the explosion.
Shane, the real question, though, is how many bottles of Bucky are going to be thrown onto the pitch after we beat them?
Well, I guess the question is how many before the final whistle as well?
How many is Joe Hart going to have to clean out of his goal area? Yep, 100%.
Well, that's what he's going to, like against Livy, he's playing Connect 4, right? And this week coming up, he's going to Connect 4 with the bottles.
Bottles on the shelf, yeah.
It's dodgeball. So dodge the bottle.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
If you can dodge Bucky, you can dodge a ball.
So, yeah, I'll bring up a bunch of comments to end the pod here. So we've got Patrick was saying the only question is Kalmak comes back for Iwata. Andrew was saying I'll be starting the same midfield with McGregor and Bernardo coming on to see the game out 100%. Hatate was excellent, but I don't think he or McGregor can play the full 90. And then I'd start the same 11, bring the others off to control the game. Patrick was saying same team as yesterday. Question is Kalmak or Iwata? And he's like, I'd stick with Iwata. CJ is saying the big call is McGregor. I would play him. Andrew's saying finish the game with Iwata, McGregor, and Bernardo. Patrick saying could be between Hatate and Kalmak as Iwata is a cert at this stage. Robert's saying Maeda has gone from Emperor Ming to K-pop boy band member in a couple of weeks.
It's Slim Shady, mate.
And there you go. Patrick saying it's Slim Shady, Robert.
I didn't see that comment.
Mahesh was Celtic have to make sure they don't get outnumbered in midfield and come up with a solution if Clement decides to man mark Kalmak. and stop Tav and Yilmaz. So if he's going to man mark Kelmac, the easiest way that he's going to be preparing to do that. So bring him off the bench for the last 30 to control the game, and that'll ruin it for him. Plays one of the legs to do it. Mahesh was saying a most likely outcome is a draw based on the XG, and he's most likely 2-2. And then Michael Ross is a must win for us. It's always a must win.
Yeah, I do. I'm inclined to agree with Mahesh about. I've said this before, and I get somewhat slated for it, mostly from our own bloody team. But it's these games are in the midfield. I think when our midfield don't perform, that's normally when we lose these games, or when they tactically suppress our midfield is also when we don't get the result we need to get. And it's a win. It's a must win.
Their downfall this season against us, it actually, Mahesh made the comment, their downfall against us this season has been their inability to actually have any kind of impact on stopping Kelmac. The first game, he was just able to get on the ball and do what he wanted. The second game, Paradise, very similar. It seemed like, obviously, the first game, I think that was still Beale, wasn't it? He was in charge of the first game, I think. Yeah, and then the second game, Clement comes in. He still doesn't do anything. Kelmac's able to roam free, and that's when he's at his best, where he's able to get on the ball, kind of get that ball from the centre halves or Joe Hart and turn and go, right? I would be staggered if he doesn't implement some sort of ability to kind of either man mark or at least, control him in some regard. If he doesn't, they would just be staggering.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting game to see how it all ends up. But yeah, there's a lot of time to go, a lot of things that can happen during the week and everything like that. So, yeah, we'll be talking more about that on Thursday, previewing the game, and we'll go from there. So we'll go to our final thoughts. So I'll give you boys a bit of a think here, but I just want to touch on this comment from Andrew. I saw the Celtic Down Under logo in the crowd after one of the late goals. If you're talking about last night's game, yeah, I saw the flag there. It was on the fence at one point as well behind one of the goals. So, yeah, it was great to see that. So, whoever you are, if you have a Celtic Down Under flag and you go to a game, take a picture out the front of the stadium or whatever. Tag us at Celtic Down on Twitter. I want to see it. I'll share it on the podcast and everything. It's great to see that. So, yeah, definitely saw that as well. And there we go. Michael's asking what minute will they get a pen? I'm saying 61st minute. There you go.
Yeah. Whoever gives them the advantage, obviously.
31st.
And my final thought is Jared was saying Jared should get a shirt that says "We'll crack on." Yeah, I do say that a bit, but you got to understand something. If Andrew's always saying we never stop, I'll always say we'll crack on.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Motto
Shane,
of the pod.
it's your final thought, mate.
Shout out to the Tassie Jack Jumpers. So they won their first NBL championship on the weekend in the 5-game series against Melbourne United. That included 2 games actually beating United in that 5-game run in Melbourne. The last game in Melbourne was the title decider. So they're only formed 4 years ago. This is their 3rd season in the comp, and they've just won the title. So shout out to Tassie and the Jack Jumpers and Scott Roth and the whole team down there. They've done an awesome job. And Ireland defended.
And if you don't know what a jack jumper is, it's an ant.
I probably should have given that context. Yes, it's an ant. It's a little fierce ant. And it's a perfect symbol for Tasmanian basketball.
Johnny, your final thought?
Final thought, just my music recommendation. So I think last time I was on, or a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how it surprised me that Michael Cera is a musician, and a very good musician at that, in his sort of psychedelic indie spacey music. It's very, very good. I've actually found another famous actor who's a musician. I don't know if many of us watch Stranger Things, but do we know Steve Harrington or whatever his name is? The actor is Joe Keery. He's a musician, and he's a bloody good musician as well. His band is called Joe, DJO, and it's also very indie. Of course, all actors got to do indie music. But yeah, really, really good. Very, very, very psychedelic, very spacey, super good, easy listening music if you just want to like put something on in the background and get on with other stuff, yeah, give them a listen. Joe, DJO.
Cool. All right, Johnny, Shane, thanks for jumping on again. Hail, everyone. And yeah, going to win the derby, obviously. Hail.
Hell.
Hell.